Okay, so I just got done planning my 2025, and I thought I would record this quick video to share with you guys what my process looks like when it comes to creating goals and um, how I try to maximize my likelihood of actually getting to the goals. Because most people do set goals. Most people have like new resolutions, but they never really reach them because of multiple reasons that we'll be diving into. So yeah, so I'm just going to be going over the overarching structure of how I like to think about goals, how I like to set them, and what are the different layers that you want to really get clarity on. And clarity is going to be a big thing that we'll be focusing on throughout the video. So you can kind of maximize the chances of actually getting there. So I guess in terms of goals, speaking of goals, I like to think of life goals in 4 different domains. Initially, I used to like super oversimplify things, and I used to just think about, okay, wealth, and that's it. Soon enough, you realize when you do get to the wealth goals, when you get to that point, and if the other domains are not dialed in, it will just be an empty feeling, right? You will get there and you will be like, okay, I thought when I do get to this wealth number, I would have everything in the world and I would have so much joy. And when you get there, it's just you feel the same. So this is why I try to kind of like incorporate a more holistic view um, of uh, of thinking about goals. So I like to think of it in terms of health, wealth, relationships, and happiness. Health being, okay, what are your health goals? Maybe you want to get to a certain body fat percentage. Maybe you want to lose X amount of kgs or whatever. Wealth would be obviously how much money you want to make, how much money you want to save. Relationships would be, this could be relationships with the family, this could be your love relationship, it could be anything that's relationship. Happiness would be anything, experiences that you want to get to, and any travel plans, and a lot of that comes into happiness. So once you have a balance between all these four, and you want to define goals for each of them, at least that's what I do. So you'll find yourself much more fulfilled, uh, because I mean, as cliche as it sounds, money doesn't buy happiness. You can have all the money in the world, but if you're lacking on the other domains, it won't be worth it. I've been there, and it just feels empty. Okay, so first things first, when it comes to defining a goal, it just comes down to clearly defining what the goal is. So being specific with it and actually going into the details. You don't want to be like, okay, I want to build muscle, or I want to get fit, or I want to be rich. That's way too vague. And not specific enough, because if you're not specific enough, again, you can't reach the goals. The goal is an effect. We really want to dive into the cause of the effect, because that's something we can control. We cannot control the goal itself. So if the goal is very intangible, it's also harder to create a cause for it, right? So you want to be specific, and secondly, you actually want to have a goal, right? This is like an obvious thing, but if you don't have a goal, it's like you're rowing a boat without knowing, you're sailing a ship without having any destination. You will just get lost in the sea. So and like another problem with that is, if you don't have a goal, you also don't know, you also don't have a measuring stick to really make decisions against. So for example, if your health goal is to lose 20 kgs in 2025, and you're faced with a decision of eating a chocolate bar that's going to get you over the calorie limit, or just staying within the calorie limit and not eating that chocolate bar, you simply have to just act in alignment, with the type of person who is more likely to lose the 20 kgs, which is someone who does not eat that chocolate bar and stays within the calorie limit. So that decision becomes a lot easier at that point. And it will also come down to like being more disciplined and actually doing what you already know you need to do, and keeping the promises to yourself. So that's kind of comes down to identity, and we'll be getting into that. But that was the first thing. So the what. So once you have the goal defined, you want to note it down and clearly define what that is. Then you want to ask yourself the when. So this is the time frame. Now most people have very skewed timelines of, oh, okay, this is how long I would need to get to my goals. And when they don't end up hitting the goals that they have within the unrealistic time frame that they set for themselves, they end up discouraged and giving up, right? So that's a place we want to avoid, because optimists die first. And I think this happened in the Holocaust as well. The people who actually ended up didn't surviving were actually the ones who were very optimistic, and they thought that they were on the verge of being saved. So you really want to have like a you really want to think in terms of in more in alignment with reality, because otherwise you're kind of living in a delusion, right? You don't have your feet in the ground. Okay, so secondly, you also want to understand the concept of compounding, right, and exponential growth. As humans, as we kind of evolved over time, most things were linear back then. So our minds are kind of, it's hard for our minds to comprehend exponential growth. But in life, most things that are worth doing, the growth is exponential in nature. So what the compounding graph kind of looks like is like, you put the effort in, but nothing kind of shows. But after like a certain tipping point, there's like exponential growth, right? So the graph goes up, and this is where most people quit. The first few, like the valley of misery. I think that's what they call it. And this is what happened with me as well. Like when I first started my business, the first 6 months we made zero money, and like I know a lot of people quit at that point. But that's really when it matters the most, because after you're making money, like, it's easier not to quit because you have momentum. But when you don't have momentum, that's where you really have to keep going, and you have to outwork, your self-doubt in a
Okay.
way. So yeah, just understanding how exponential growth works, it's just going to help you volumes, because you now know what to expect. You now know that if you're not making any progress, it's not because of, you're doing something wrong. As long as you're putting the causes to the effect, there's always a delayed effect, right? You're planting the seeds in the right direction, and over time you have to almost trust that the compounding effect will happen, and after a point you'll bear the fruits of your labor. Third thing is actually understanding the why, because you don't just want your goal. Your goal is actually a manifestation of your inner drive, and essentially it's something that was maybe missing, in the earlier parts of your life. A lot of these hidden motives as to why we want to, stand out, and why we want to be different from other people. It really comes down to early childhood, right? Very subconscious, deep things. So you want to really get clarity on these things, because otherwise, when, let's say, you're motivated now and you're not motivated 6 months from now, you will end up falling apart, right? And it's always good to remind yourself as to why getting to that point and getting to that goal is important to you, so you can get yourself back on track, essentially. So this is like an exercise I like to do to really figure out my why. So on a paper, you just want to write down numbers 1 to 5, and just write down your goal on the next of number one, and then on the next of number two, you want to write down why do you want the goal that you wrote on number one, right? Now on number three, you want to write down why you want number two, and after a point, you'll kind of go one layer deeper, one layer deeper, one layer deeper, and you want to repeat this process until you get to the bottom of it, right? And this might take time. That's okay. This is like the highest leverage thing, really understanding what's driving you. It's the highest leverage thing you will do. So spend time on it, right? And chances are the questioning that you do, it will reveal some uglier motives or some healthier ones. But you just have to keep your ego aside and be honest with yourself. That's really going to be the key uh, to you kind of, accepting, because a lot of times the subconscious will reject it because it's going to be uncomfortable. We like to think of ourselves as morally right and righteous, but a lot of times you will figure things out that you maybe not do not want to confront. And it's important to be, open minded and keep your ego aside at those points. Then you want to figure out the how. Now this is where we'll be focusing on the causes that will lead to the effect, because like we discussed earlier, goals are just the effect, but we want to focus on is the causes instead, because goal is like an intangible. That's like it's a grandiose thing that we cannot touch, we can't control that. What we can control is the micro actions we are putting in. It's what we are doing on a day-to-day basis, that by just repeating that on a daily basis on a micro, over the macro, it will lead to us actually achieving that goal, right? So the micro things are what we can control. So what you want to define now in the how section is what are the things that you can, control there. So this would be, for example, if your goal is to lose 20 kgs, you will first of all find your maintenance calories, and then you want to eat in a calorie deficit, and do that over the micro. Over the micro, there's also going to be, certain things like avoiding shitty foods. This might be anything that has sugar or anything that's processed. You obviously, most people know what they need to do, but it's just about kind of following through on that, staying within your calorie limit, working out every day, and doing this over the micro. And just by you doing it, um, obviously it won't, again, going back to the law of compounding, if you do it for like a week, probably not going to show you any differences. But if you just repeat the micro for like 3 months, for like 6 months, you will see that just by you having those check boxes on your progress tracker or your habit tracker, you will see that 6 months down the line, it actually led to you losing the weight that you wanted to, right? So that's how you want to kind of think about it, because now you're not overly concerned about the goal anymore, but all you care about is if I'm doing the daily things or not. Because if I'm doing it, you almost trust that you will be getting to that point over the macro. I hope that makes sense. I know that was a lot. So yeah, uh, another thing I like to focus on is the environment. Environment is, I found, is the biggest factor of, what kind of contributes or does not contribute to your goals. And this is where I think a lot of people kind of fall apart, because with environment, there's a lot of times you have to make sacrifices, and that's hard for a lot of people. It was hard for me when I was starting out. So you really want to ask yourself these three questions that are like, which is first, obviously you have your goal defined at this point already, but then you want to ask yourself, okay, does my current environment support my goal, or does it push me away from the goal? Uh, it's If it does not support your goal, you want to write down all the things that you need to change in the current environment to make it, like, more consistent with you actually getting to the goals. So at this point, this for example, I'm giving like a health goal. If your goal is to be more healthy, build muscle, and be more fat and whatever. So, but your environment is basically, if your fridge has a lot of Coca-Cola or any of the shitty foods, or if you have friends who are degenerates and they want to go party every weekend and eat unhealthy food, you have to cut them off, right? Same with the wealth goal. If you want to get to 10K a month, but you have distractions and you want to play video games and you want to do stupid stuff, you just have to cut them out. Because if you don't cut out the distractions that you have, if you don't sacrifice them, your goals will become the sacrifice. So you have to ask yourself what's important to you. Is it the goal that you say that you wanted, or is it to keep indulging in the habits and the old habits you have and just maintain the current identity that you have? What's more important to you? And after a point, you have to just make a decision here, because most people have goals, right? And this is really what prevents them, is not being able to make sacrifices, not doing the micro things that they already know they need to do. And this is really, I think that's the perfect segue for us to go into the who, essentially who you need to become, because you obviously, metaphorically, you need to kill the current self so you can evolve into the he who can, the person who can actually achieve the goals. Because chances are, if you were already that person, you wouldn't be watching this. You already have achieved the goals that you had. So this is where you have to kind of design your desired identity, right? Because we don't achieve our goals, we actually become the person who is capable of achieving the goals. And again, that's what we can control. So just by you doing that, the byproduct of that will be you achieving the goals by you having what you want, right? So the identity, you want to really define that. So and with any identity, the identity has three aspects, right? First is skills. Skills are actually built through learning. This could be courses or books. You have to define like what skills you would need for you to hit each of these goals, right? So for example, if it's health, maybe the skill you need to have is like the correct workout form, or like maybe tracking, or like nutrition tracking, or counting macros. There's different skills you need to have. When it comes to wealth, this might be sales, or marketing, or product development, or operations, or automations. There's different skills you need to have, and I'm sure you'd be aware of what skills you need. Um, so you want to kind of learn these. This is the first aspect of identity. The second is character traits. So these are the labels that people give you. For example, disciplined, charismatic, intelligent, or whatever these labels are, right? So these are like character traits that you can just build by just acting in alignment with these character traits. So if you're faced with a decision of eating a chocolate bar or not eating a chocolate bar, just by acting like a person who is not eating a chocolate bar, you actually put one word towards being someone who's disciplined. And the more you do it, the more you will reinforce that identity, not in others, but also yourself, because you're keeping the promises to yourself now. And that's the most important relationship you can build, which is with yourself. So yeah, third is beliefs. So beliefs are very subconscious. These are like uh, the inner thoughts, and they're kind of ingrained in a subconscious, and this is what kind of drives you a lot of times. So for example, this like a really good example would be, if you want to get to $10,000 a month with the business, and the limiting belief that you have is that money is scarce and hard to come by, which is very common in the typical Indian household. A lot of our parents subconsciously ingrain that within us, and if you have that mentality, obviously it's going to be harder for you to get to that number, right? Because you'll end up self-sabotaging yourself just because you think money is hard to come by. And when you think that, subconsciously you will, even if it was easy, like you would just make it harder for yourself. Like that's how the subconscious works. You will just kind of like your frequency will align with the reality. So this is a bit complex. So with the reality that will make it harder for you to get that money. So this is from a book called Reality Transfer. It's a bit advanced, but I hope you get the point. So what you want to do is you want to change these limiting beliefs into actually having the beliefs that would help you get closer to the goals. So this would be just flipping that belief would be money is abundant, and you attract large amounts of money, and it's like you deserve large amounts of money, right? So that would be like a positive belief that would move you closer to the goal. So you just want to flip. You want to identify all the current beliefs you have, flip them into beliefs that actually move you closer to the goals, and also add on some other beliefs who would also help you get to the goals. And the way you want to reinforce these beliefs is by using affirmations in the morning, visualization before bed, and you want to repeat these new beliefs until they're deeply ingrained, right? So now the final thing is tracking the progress. So I like to use a progress tracker, weekly reflection. So with progress tracker is basically like a habit tracker that I have. So every day I kind of update the habit tracker. I make sure I'm keeping the promises to myself and acting in alignment of the type of person I want to be. Weekly reflection is after, at the end of the week, I do a reflection of, okay, how did the week went? What are the things I did to push me towards my goals? What are the things I did to push me away from my goals? And what am I going to do next week to improve on what are the things that push me away from my goals, right? And this is where you keep course correcting. You keep reflecting on your progress, what worked, what didn't work, and what are you going to do to make the process better. And third is the warm-up calendar. This is where I used to kind of plan tomorrow today, so that I know exactly what I'm going to do tomorrow. So I don't have to think through, okay, I'm sitting on my desk and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what should I do? I actually already plan everything out the day before, so that I know exactly what I want to do during the day. So yeah, I hope that was valuable. If you have any specific questions, if you need any help, drop me a message. If you want this document, join the Discord server, and just ping me or DM me, and I'll get this over to you. Yeah, thanks for hopping on, guys.